You're listening to Haunted Tales with Skoto the Reaper. The Undying by Dependent Offer 7714. Ventilation fans buzzed above a body sprawled on the cold metal floor. Lights from the alarm system flickered in the darkened room, signaling a once chaotic scene now lapsed into eerie calm. Blood sprayed the walls and pooled on the floor, welling around the body. A gasping breath invaded his lungs as his eyes snapped open to the surroundings. He climbed to his feet and wobbled slightly. The red light drew his attention as it swirled and flashed. How long he'd been out, he didn't know, but he glanced at his torn clothing and the damp blood spatter on his shirt. Fear didn't strike, only curiosity. He tried to recall where he was, but remembered nothing. The gnashing of metal echoed around him, and he strained to pinpoint its source. His first step demanded focus, as if relearning a skill mastered long ago. He scanned for an exit, but the room lies shrouded in shadow, sealed shut from outside. A sudden flash pierced the dark. A large monitor crackled to life with static. Drawn to the anomaly, he stared into its churning chaos. Within the snow, a woman sharpened into view as she fiddled with cables from her medbay console. Motionless, his gaze fixed on the screen. She looked familiar. Her suit mirrored his, intact, unbloodied. Ecstatic about her find, she rambled in an unintelligible tongue, then paused, staring expectantly. He kept watching, noting the room behind her, achingly familiar. Realizing he couldn't hear, she shifted tactics. She pointed at him, then the security door to his right. Her hands swept upward to her own chamber. She repeated the gestures, nodding with a smile. A deep connection hummed through the screen, unreciprocated in his idle stare. The red light steadied to green as the door hissed open. He noticed, but glanced back at the monitor. She jabbed toward it again, then a ripple of gunfire ripped a short scream from her before the feed cut out. Emergency lights stuttered on, casting feeble glows as he stumbled into the hallway. An unnatural quiet cloaked the spaceship. Crew absent. Blood streaks trailed into rooms, smeared handprints across walls, punctures, honeycombed sealed doors. Boredom pulled him onward, gaze drifting from chamber to chamber. Stumbling across the glass skyway, he spotted a massive vessel hovering overhead. Its lights powered up, scouring for life. Beams lanced the shadows as a firm voice boomed through the PA. Words lost on him. Ignoring the bramble, he crossed into the main control area. A spiral staircase loomed upward, flanked by slumped bodies. Pausing, he traced the hauntingly known curve, the idle forms against the walls, gripping the handrail. He hauled himself up the steps toward a pull that stirred vague curiosity. A few steps from the bottom, he turned as the vessel fired. Its beam shattered the skyway, carving through the quarters he'd just traversed. Tearing metal shrieked in his ears. Blinding light yanked his gaze from the carnage. Screams trailed into wails as vacuum clawed the halls. A massive fireball roared through, hungry for air, embers spiraling like dying stars. It barreled toward the stairs, flames licking unbiased the dead. At the last instant, the emergency bulkhead slammed shut, starving the blaze. It guttered against the metal and died. Through the viewport, he watched bodies tumble into the star-speckled black, their bloodied, ragged clothes trailing like ghosts. They'd perished a second time in the oxygen void. Half the ship lay gutted, adrift in lazy orbit. The aggressor loomed closer, searchlights probing the intact sections. When interest waned, he resumed climbing. Each step synced with habit, muscle memory overriding the fog. The route ended at a heavy security door, scarred in blood. Bodies sprawled on the stairs, marred by bullets and gouges. A card slot gleamed in the panel. His fingers traced it instinctively. Swiping empty air, he repeated the motion, glazed eyes awaiting the click he somehow knew. The door's monitor flickered on. There she was again, excitement laced with fear. After a tense beat, she overrode the lock. Beside her stood a man, familiar yet flushed and tender-skinned, rifle in hand. He sized up the intruder, then leveled the barrel at the bloodied figure shambling in. Words tumbled from him in a frantic blur. She clutched his shoulder, tears streaming, her voice a desperate murmur he couldn't parse, pleading for restraint. He gestured sharply at the gore, stomach, arms, chest, where flesh hung in ragged strips. The man stepped closer, inhaling the soft appeal of their features, their warmth. The rifleman whirled back, face crumpling as he encroached. He yelled, tears welling, thumbed off the safety, finger tightening on the trigger. He sighted the head. The ship lurched, docking clamps engaging with a thunderous weld. Alarms wailed as the bloodied man surged, wrenching the rifle free and slamming its owner to the deck. Up close, the flesh, tempted, yielding, pulsing. The man's cries choked off in a wet gurgle, drowned by the hole's protesting groan. The woman screamed, lunging for the fallen gun. She snatched it and bolted to the far bulkhead, away from the encroaching weld sparks. Wheeling, she fired blindly into the cabin's shadows. Ricochets whined off metal. The gun's roar faded to vent hums. She glanced at the weld, halted now. The PA crackled, the external voice urgent. Sobbing, she crumpled as the clamps released with a shudder. The aggressor peeled away, steadying at a safe move where the cannons hummed to life. From behind a pillar he waited, air whistling from the room as pressure bled. Footsteps pattered, hers frantic. As the ship detached, micro-fractures spiderwebbed the welds, sucking breath into the void. Rifle slack at her side, she stared at the charging beam. He lunged from cover. She snapped up the weapon, superheated rounds tearing his gut as teeth clamped her neck, pulse thrumming against them like a final heartbeat. She held the trigger, shredding him with lead. Blood slicked her grip. In the haze, a memory surfaced. Their quiet moment in the medbay, her bandaging his scraped knuckles, promising to face every storm side by side, no matter what came. She met his fading eyes. Her words pierced the fog at last, clear as a scalpel's edge. "My life with yours," she whispered. "That's what we wanted, and that's what we'll get." The beam lanced through, vaporizing whole flesh and every broken vow in its searing wake.